Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to another Bleach discussion video. I am once again joined by the one, the only, hashtag Krillin' it in the comment section below, D-Free. Why don't you say hello to everyone?
It's called Mac Daddy Free, boy. Get it right.
I don't know if I've ever heard that one before. Anyway, guys, like I said, this is a Bleach discussion video. We're going to be talking about the new live-action Bleach movie that just came out on Netflix. So if you haven't watched it yet, you don't want to be spoiled by anything, heck, then just go on your Netflix account, because you probably have one, and watch this movie before you come back and listen to our thoughts on this. This isn't really a review so much as it is just a discussion between two guys. So, okay, I have to say, just first off, man, like, I really like this movie. Like, I was actually really surprised by the fact that I really enjoyed at least the first hour and 20 minutes of this movie. Like, I was super into it, really engaged with all the characters and everything they were doing, the fight scenes, all of the special effects, just everything worked. And as crazy and ridiculous as the Bleach story is, I can't believe that I actually really liked it. But we'll talk about the last 25 minutes as we go through this. But what are your initial thoughts on it before we get into more details?
No, I 100% agree. Like, I'm always very skeptical of, live action interpretations of these outlandish, crazy manga series, like Shonen in particular, where they're doing all these crazy things. Like, for example, we've had bad experiences in the past. We're not going to mention the Dragon Ball one, but we just did. Of course, technology's come a long way, so maybe if they were to try it again, it'd be a little better. But nonetheless, I'm always a little bit skeptical. But one thing I noticed when I first started watching this was, like, the first thing I see is, like, okay, I don't mind this. I think it looks solid. And then they showed the hollow, and I'm like, damn, this actually looks really good. Like, legit, the hollow looked really good. And I was like, okay, all right, so maybe this is gonna be pretty clean. And then they start showing, all of the actual, like, stunts and all that, and I'm like, okay, this could work. For the most part, they didn't do anything like really crazy. I think obviously the most crazy things were whenever they were fighting, the last couple of fight scenes. That was where the more crazy things happened. With Renji and his Zanpakuto, that was flying around, and I thought that was pretty cool. But they didn't try to delve too deep into a lot of stuff. Some of that was because of narrative, like, Getsuga Tenshos and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like if they did, it would have looked good, like, legit. I think that the movie looked great, and that was how my initial thoughts were, because again, like, that very first hollow scene where he gets the powers, I'm like, this looks really good.
Yeah,
so
that's one of the things I really appreciated them not doing in this movie, is really focusing on the hollows as actual characters. Because, okay, I just have to preface this entire conversation between you and I, because when we first met on this platform, and for anyone, this is just kind of a backlog into D-Free and Mai's relationship in terms of YouTube. Like, when we first met, like, it was Dragon Ball. We were talking about Dragon Ball all the time, but then I was getting into other anime, and he was reintroducing himself to other anime that he had watched as a kid. Like, oh, I'm going to watch Naruto, I'm going to watch Bleach, I'm going to watch all this other stuff. So I started watching Bleach around the same time you did, but you just stormed past it, and I was just, like, really taking my time and trying to get into this stuff.
to this day I still do that, by the way. I've stormed through like 5 animes in the last like 3 weeks.
And I just take so much time. I don't watch things very deliberate. I watch things very deliberately, actually. And so anyway, like, so we were watching this stuff around the same time, and you just kind of stormed past it. But this was the very first time I was watching the Bleach anime, and the one thing I remember them doing that I thought was really interesting was introducing these hollows as individual characters. They had memories of who they were, or they had intentions as to what they were doing. And that was one of the things I thought that they were going to be focusing on in this movie in a really big way. Like, these cute creatures, if that's what we're going to be focusing on with this storyline, are going to have personalities, and they're going to be the main antagonists of the story. But they didn't do that, right? Like, the very first hollow they introduced, and almost all the other ones they introduced from there, didn't really have a main character. They didn't have a thrust. They didn't even introduce who they were. Like, they were actual human souls that had just gone bad in the previous life or past or whatever before they became hollows. These creatures were just like, hey, I want your soul. I'm going to attack you. I'm the big, strong monster of this particular scene. And I have to admit, like, at least story wise, it made sense. It actually helped the story flow a little bit more and allowed us to focus on characters like Ichigo and all the other people that we needed to actually learn about and care about as the story progressed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't really too much mind it, to be honest. Like, they did a little bit when it came to the Grand
Fisher.
Fisher?
Yeah, Grand Fisher.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever it came to that one, they did a little bit. You know, they were talking about how it was initially like a little girl and stuff. So like, that's fine. But I really just really liked the fact that they were able to pretty much do justice to the main character of the series in this, you know, and kind of speed through his training and all that stuff. And if they had tried to flesh out the Hollows a little bit more, it probably wouldn't have worked, because I mean, this was a longer movie. Like, I thought it was gonna be like, you know, an hour or so. It was about an hour and 40 minutes, give or take. So, you know, they didn't really have a whole lot of time otherwise, but I think they did a good job otherwise, though, personally.
Yeah, I have to say, man, I don't know about you. I really don't. It's just the beginning of the movie, it put me off. I don't understand what they were thinking or whose idea that this was. Like, I don't know. But the very first part of the scene, you have this kid playing Ichigo. He doesn't have orange hair.
Yeah, we talked about that. That legit. So that's okay. We talked about first impressions. Okay, I didn't even mention that. I should have. So when you first start up the movie, of course, it's Ichigo and his mom and all that stuff. You know, they give context, right? And that's fine. It's just the first thing I noticed was, wait a minute, this little boy has like black or like dark brownish hair, like that. Oh, that's off. Okay, well, I guess this movie they'll not have the outlandish wacky hair, which was like obviously the first thing I thought about. I was like, oh, whatever. I guess I'm not really gonna like this a whole lot, because it's not such a big deal, but it's kind of like I really don't like it when they're not like true to that part of the character, because it's just a cosmetic thing. And you know, from there, right after that, when they flash forward to present day, the man actually has the right color hair, and I'm like, what the? Hold on. Did his hair change color spontaneously? Does he dye his hair? Like, I mean, I guess it would make sense. Otherwise, I don't know, because everybody else has black hair.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
It is one thing that kind of defines his character in the manga and the anime. And I don't know why they didn't decide just to have the kid have orange hair, just give him a wig or something to sell that. It was the weirdest thing. And it was the weird thing, actually.
What made it weirder was they kept calling back to it for context.
Like, in the anime, in the manga, his mom actually has the orange hair. So like, you know, like by context, like that's where he gets that hair, and it's one of the reasons why he's such an outcast when we meet him in the main story. And they kind of leached onto that. Like, they actually took that narrative and like, okay, Ichigo is going to be this outlandish character, or kind of in the outskirts of his social group, because he has this hair and everyone notices it and kind of distinguishes him with that. And that's fine, but that doesn't happen in real life. You don't like actually just change hair colors when you're 10 years old.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible. I don't know like science or anything like that, but it was the weirdest thing for me. Like, it was kind of jarring in its own right. But the thing I want to kind of jump on is, yes, you have Ichigo being introduced, you have Rukia being introduced. I liked the initial Hollow fight. I feel like that was pretty solid in terms of adapting the main story of the manga and anime, where just really straightforward, this is what's going on, and we're going to have Ichigo fight this Hollow. The Hollow represents a nice little barrier or thing for Ichigo to actually get across before he actually understands what everything is going on. And then we have to really introduce Rukia and her character. And I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. I was kind of okay with what they did with her, but I understand after having gone through the anime and having gone through the manga of and I realized, okay, she's so much more of a character in that context, but you can't really give her everything that you gave her in a longer format like that in a 90-minute or an hour and 45-minute movie. You know, you have to kind of whittle down her character enough to give Ichigo just enough thrust in order to make him the main character of the movie, and she just becomes kind of his sidekick character. What are your thoughts on Rukia?
Well, like, I think the thing, like, you just kind of pointed it out, but the thing about the movie is, like, it only, like we talked about earlier, has, like, you know, so much time to work with, and that innately is an issue that when you come to trying to adapt a movie, right, especially from a long-form series like Bleach, you don't have the ability to flesh out a character through and through. You'll take multiple movies or whatever. So to me, like, Rukia is one of the characters that gets lost in the fray of all that. Her and other characters, you know, it's not just her, but other characters as well, because, I mean, if you take a look at the story, they have to, you know, introduce Ichigo. They have to introduce his family because they are an integral part of this story as well, especially later on. You know, they have to do that. Then they also have to introduce how he gets his powers and his, you know, relationship to Rukia. Then from there, his relationship to all of his friends in school. He died and all that stuff. That guy had me weak. That guy had me so weak. He was always doing it every time. And he's like, no, I'm alive. You know, like all the friends and stuff like that. And then you get into all the people from the Soul Society. And it's like, there's just no room. So to me, like, Rukia in this movie, like the first like 45 minutes, she was really good. I thought that she had some nice humanizing moments. I thought that she was relatable in a lot of scenarios, and I thought that she had a good performance. It just was more so in the last half, like after like they show off Uryu and the fact that he's a Quincy, like right after that, you know, where they were in the park or whatever when they first meet Renji. After that, she just kind of was like, whatever. You know, I didn't really care anymore. But, of course, it's because, you know, she had to get back to training Ichigo. And then, of course, her life was at stake and all this other stuff in a different context because now her brother was there. It just to me, it didn't hit home. And everything else from there on pretty much towards the end of the movie, you know, where she leaves and goes back, it didn't hit home with me. I couldn't really get behind it. Like, it didn't feel like a big moment or anything like that, you know. I don't know.
I completely agree. We wanted to save this for the end of the conversation, but I just want to jump in here and say that last 20-25 minutes of that movie just felt like pure fan service setting up the sequel of the movie. You know, like we just wanted to set the seeds for the Soul Society arc if we actually get a chance to make the sequel to this movie. It makes sense in context when you look at it in a completely business sense, but it was weird. It really is weird showing Rukia kind of take back her powers in a way and going back to Soul Society, reaffirming that, okay, all these characters don't understand what's going on, but they might understand if things are pointing that way, or they know like what they just kind of went up against. I felt like the whole Grand Fisher story of the series, or at least this movie, that was what we were building towards, and it gets done, and then the movie has basically 20 minutes to go. And it's like, what's going on here? Like, shouldn't this film shouldn't this film cut to credits? Shouldn't this film be done at this point? Like, why am I still watching this?
I told you that whenever the Grand Fisher fight ended, I looked at the time remaining. I was like, wait a minute, 25 minutes. This has to be some kind of like sick joke. There's got to be something wrong here. There's no way this is 25 minutes because the climax basically finished, and then Renji shows up and it's like, oh, okay, well, they're just gonna like, you know, knock Ichigo out. They're gonna take her and it's over. All right, so I would have been fine with that, but no, they go into this whole other fight scene, which I didn't dislike the fight scene. It's kind of just like though. Everything else after that felt like it was just dragging the movie on.
Yeah, no,
and like you said, to set up, that's fair. I mean, just to me, I was just like, wait a minute, hold on. There's literally 20 more minutes. Maybe that's 20 minutes of credits. You know, no, okay, it was okay.
Like no, that's exactly what it is. Is like when Renji shows up, you're like, hey, this is gonna be great. Like maybe we get like one more fight scene, but then it becomes another fight scene and another fight scene, another fight scene, and not just like a fight scene that's satisfying. It's just literally Ichigo getting his ass handed to him again and again and again and again. And you're like, okay, I understand. This is Ichigo's character. He's never going to give up on his friends. He's never going to give up on anyone else. He wants to protect everyone. Why do we have to keep reaffirming this character trait of his? Like, why can't we just move on and get to the very end of this movie? But it refuses to end, and that's what really bogs this story down. Is it goes on for 20 minutes too long. And you know, like, I want to hear your thoughts on this, at least on recording, because we were talking about this beforehand, but like the whole Soul Society part of this movie is we got that one wide shot of it where we got an idea of what is
only one.
That was actually kind of cool. I like that. I like the fact that it's dark and ominous, and we might actually get a chance to explore it in future sequels to this movie. But the characters that we did get introduced to that were a part of it in this movie were just cringy. As much as I like them in the anime, Renji was probably the worst person in this film, and Byakuya is probably a close second.
Yeah, Renji to me, like, Renji was my biggest issue. Like, I could deal with Byakuya. I wasn't a big fan of maybe the actor they cast, but Renji to me, like, I didn't like the whole red wig, and I understand why they have to do it that way. The red, like, it just looked dry. It didn't look good to me. The tattoos look good. Zabumaru, however you pronounce it, Zanpakuto, like, that looked good to me too. I like that too. But everything from Renji otherwise was just cringy to me. Like, I didn't like the stature he was standing with a lot of the time. I didn't like all these other little intricacies that are in Renji's actual character, but, like, that just didn't feel right to me. Just the little things that he tried to do, the actor, it just didn't work for me. It just felt cringy. It just felt like, he was trying. I'm not going to take that from him, but it just didn't fit, And I don't know. I just wasn't a fan. Like, I can't really state it. It just felt weird. It just didn't fit.
I really think one of the things when it comes to Renji's character is that his design, more so than Ichigo and Rukia and Byakuya and Chad and Orihime and everybody else in the entire film, his design is really anime-like, especially when you have him at the very beginning of Bleach. And one of the
and so is his personality.
It really is. And, like, one of the things I think they were trying to do is be very loyal to that interpretation of his character. But when you look at it, when they're trying to realistically imagine everything in the Bleach world to make it fit in our world, it just doesn't really come across very well. It comes across really cartoonish. And almost as soon as he actually comes into the movie, that whole alleyway scene, it's just like, oh, this is weird. Like, it has a weird shift to it where, okay, we're entering the more manga, cartoonish aspects of this world. Everything else has been dulled down to a really entertaining extent where, okay, it fits in a live action movie idea, but Renji's character just doesn't fit in that realm. And you know what? I just have to say, that is one of the reasons I would rather it end here. I know they set it up for a sequel. It's pretty apparent that they want to do the Soul Society arc, but it had a really nice ending. And taking it to the Soul Society arc would either have to bastardize a lot of the context to make it actually fit in a realistic sense in live action, or it would have to adapt all of that in a really crazy format where you have an entire sequel to this movie feel just like that Renji part, where everything just kind of feels a little too overblown and crazy, and I don't really feel like this is actually working in any real way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it just gets kind of worse as we get introduced to more of those types of characters, and then ultimately we get introduced to all their crazy abilities too. So it's just gonna go up and up and up. But ultimately, it's just that is the innate issue. Like I said, I'm always skeptical of them trying to adapt live action just because these shows are that out there. So it's really hard to capture that and portray that the way it's supposed to be portrayed, or in a good, respectable way. So I think it's going to get out of hand, which I don't know. Maybe that'll deter a second movie or a third movie, whatever. But to me, like, I don't know, like, back on Renji, like, maybe that's what it is. I just think maybe his personality's too out there. A lot of his movements, his figures of speeds, like, that type of stuff, it just didn't get captured too well to me. And the thing that I did like about Renji, though, I will say, is the way that he started to show a little bit of his admiration for Ichigo towards the end. Because it's like, he doesn't give up. Like, he's literally trying hard. And, I like that because we know at some point, he becomes a good friend of Ichigo's and stuff like that. So, to me, that's probably my favorite part of it. Byakuya was a dick, but to be fair, he's a dick in everything, so...
he is. And that, to me, is one of the things. Even though I didn't like his portrayal very much, I kind of felt like, okay, there was something there, and I wouldn't like I wouldn't mind actually exploring that character a little bit more in another sequel. But like I said, I feel like they would have to bastardize it so much by getting rid of a lot of the captains. That's the way I think. The only way they can do it is by getting rid of a whole lot of the captains.
Oh yeah,
because
if you thought this movie had a hard time introducing it, because we didn't even talk about the whole like school cast really, like, and how they literally are the biggest losers of this movie, just because they don't really, and it's not, they just don't really get the chance, you know, to really do much aside from just be like cheerleaders, really, which a lot of times they are in the series anyway, but a lot of times also they do interact and do things, and of course that stuff we'll see again in a sequel or stuff like that. But if you thought that cast of characters was shafted, quote unquote, then watch what happens when they try to introduce all these other captains, all these other, you know, assistant captains and all that stuff. You know, it's just gonna get out of hand. It's just not gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is, I was telling you before we started recording, like even they set it up very briefly. And I felt like that's why the last 20 minutes of this movie really feels like a setup for a sequel, is they set it up very briefly with one scene with Urahara talking to Orihime and Chad, talking about Ichigo's training, and kind of setting up the fact that he's going to train them later for a Soul Society arc movie or something like that. And like, it just feels like too much to juggle when you have Ichigo, Orihime, Chad, Urahara, Renji, and all the other captains, and all these, like, literally all these other characters.
And then you get into not Soifon, the other one. Forgot her name.
Yoruichi.
Yep, Yoruichi. Then you get into all that, and it's like all, and then you gotta show Zangetsu, and you, oh my god.
Just doesn't work. Like it's the weirdest thing. Like, and you know what? If I could say one thing about this movie, why I feel like people should watch it. First of all, it's on Netflix. Most people have a Netflix account or know somebody who has a Netflix account. It's probably free. However you want to like kind of look at it, it's free to watch. And this is so much better. So much better than Dragon Ball Evolution, than the Netflix Death Note movie, than all of the other manga adaptation live action movies that you've probably ever seen.
It felt like this one had a big budget, like in relation to some of those other live actions.
Especially with the Japanese ones. Like I would say I really enjoyed the Death Note movies, but this one definitely had a bigger budget than those, and I feel like it was more loyal to like what they were trying to adapt. At least for the first one.
Oh, yeah. Death Note, the more recent one, was like, oh, okay. Light is black now? Oh, no, not light. L is black? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. It's like that was bad. That was really bad. But this one, if you were at all excited or actually like Bleach or have liked Bleach at any point in your life, I think that this is definitely worth watching because it adapts the very first part of the show, which if you like the show or the manga or anything else in the past, this is probably one of the story arcs that you're actually familiar with. It adapts it in a really genuine way that makes it entertaining to watch, at least for that first 80 minutes. And that first 80 minutes overshadows the last 20 minutes for a great deal. And I actually really liked it. It made me excited to get back into Bleach again, maybe read some manga and watch some anime, really. And that doesn't happen very often for me.
No, I feel the same way. Like I was telling you prior, it makes me feel like I want to go back and watch again. That's why I think I probably will, actually.
Yeah, and that's crazy considering how, I guess, Bleach has been kind of dead. I did a video on this on my channel recently, just kind of in excitement for this movie, and I felt like, you know, the whole Bleach community, the whole Bleach fandom in terms of people who want to talk about it and actually watch the content or discuss it in any real way has kind of fallen off pretty big after the anime was done, and then after the manga was actually done a couple years back, and it's just not the same way that it was. But this is something, it just makes me excited again. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that makes excited again, like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember growing up with that. I remember actually having a lot of genuine connection with Ichigo and Rukia and all these other characters. I wouldn't mind actually going and revisiting them some way.
Nope, that's me totally.
Anyway, guys, we're going to just end it off there. I hope everyone has actually enjoyed the content thus far. Hope everyone go down to the description section below and hit that link to go subscribe to D-Free. The guy makes some awesome Dragon Ball content, other anime content with all of his other channels, so make sure to go check him out. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.